Welcome to tonight's story. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and allow yourself to drift into a world of wonder and mystery. As you settle into the comfort of your bed, let go of the worries of the day and let your imagination take you on a journey to a distant kingdom. In a land where ancient secrets lie hidden and a brave princess stands against the shadows, we will explore the tale of Elara, who is guided by visions from a magical tulip. Together, we will unravel the mysteries of the castle, where treachery lurks in the darkness and the fate of the kingdom hangs in the balance. As you listen to the story unfold, feel the warmth of the night embrace you, and let the soothing sound of my voice carry you into a peaceful slumber. Tonight, allow yourself to be transported to Eldoria, where courage, wisdom, and magic will guide you through the night. Now, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let the story begin. Chapter 1: The Awakening of Visions. In the heart of Eldoria, nestled between ancient mountains and sprawling forests, lay the grand castle of King Alaric. The castle, with its towering spires and intricate stonework, was a testament to the kingdom's rich history. It was within these hallowed halls that a discovery was made, one that threatened to unravel the very fabric of Eldoria's existence. Princess Elara, the only daughter of King Alaric, was known throughout the land for her wisdom and courage. Her curiosity often led her to the castle's vast library, a labyrinth of ancient scrolls and tomes. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow through the library's stained glass windows, Elara found herself drawn to a particular manuscript. It was hidden in a dusty corner, bound in worn leather and inscribed with runes she had never seen before. Her heart quickened as she carefully opened the manuscript, the pages brittle with age. The text within was a prophecy, foretelling a time of darkness and despair. Elara read the words aloud, her voice barely a whisper. When the shadow rises and the stars fall from the sky, Eldoria shall face its greatest peril. A force unseen shall bring the kingdom to its knees, unless the one with the sight of the future can alter the course of fate. Elara's hands trembled as she closed the manuscript. The weight of the prophecy pressed upon her, a heavy burden she knew she must bear. She immediately sought out her father, finding him in the grand hall, surrounded by advisors and courtiers. "Father, I must speak with you," she said urgently, her eyes wide with fear and determination. King Alaric dismissed his advisors, sensing the gravity in his daughter's voice. "What troubles you, Elara?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Elara recounted her discovery, each word carefully chosen to convey the seriousness of the prophecy. As she spoke, King Alaric's expression grew more grave. When she finished, he remained silent for a moment, deep in thought. "We must not take this prophecy lightly," he finally said. "If what you have found is true, then we are indeed facing a dire threat. We must seek counsel and prepare for the worst. News of the prophecy spread quickly through the castle, igniting fear and uncertainty among its inhabitants. Elara, however, refused to succumb to despair. She spent hours in the library, poring over every manuscript and tome she could find, searching for any clue that might help her understand the prophecy and find a way to prevent the coming disaster. One evening, as she wandered the castle grounds seeking solace, Elara found herself drawn to the royal gardens. The gardens were a place of beauty and tranquility, filled with vibrant flowers and meticulously maintained hedges. As she walked among the blooms, she noticed a peculiar tulip tucked away in a secluded corner. Its petals shimmered with an otherworldly glow, unlike any flower she had ever seen. Curiosity piqued, Elara gently picked the tulip. As her fingers brushed against its petals, a vision flooded her mind. She saw a masked figure, shrouded in darkness, standing over the ruins of Eldoria. The vision was so vivid, so real, that it left her breathless. Elara knew then that this tulip was no ordinary flower. It was a gift, perhaps even a sign from the gods. With this tulip, she had the power to glimpse the future and hopefully change it. Determined to prevent the prophecy from coming true, Elara clutched the tulip to her chest and hurried back to the castle. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger, but she was resolved to save her kingdom, no matter the cost. Princess Elara's discovery of the mystic tulip marked the beginning of a journey that would test her resolve and bravery like never before. The tulip's petals, with their ethereal glow, held the key to visions of the future. A future she desperately needed to change to save her kingdom from the dark prophecy. Returning to her chambers, Elara placed the tulip in a delicate crystal vase on her desk. She stared at it, contemplating the immense responsibility that now lay on her shoulders. As the moonlight filtered through her window, casting a silvery glow across the room, she decided it was time to uncover more of the tulip's secrets. That night, with the castle cloaked in silence, Elara sat by the tulip and gently touched its petals. Another vision surged into her mind. She saw herself standing in a darkened hall, surrounded by shadows. The masked figure from her first vision was there, speaking to someone whose face was hidden. She strained to hear their conversation, but could only catch fragmented words. Betrayal, trust, throne. The vision faded, leaving Elara with more questions than answers. Who was the masked figure? And who was the mysterious conspirator? She knew she needed guidance to interpret these visions correctly. The following morning, Elara sought an audience with her father. She found him in his private study, deep in conversation with his trusted advisor, Lord Cedric. Elara waited patiently until they were alone before revealing her second vision. "Father, the tulip has shown me more," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "I saw a dark hall and the masked figure speaking to someone about betrayal and the throne. We must act swiftly to uncover their identities. King Alaric listened intently, his face lined with worry. Elara, these visions are a gift, but they are also a burden. We cannot act recklessly based on fragments of the future. We need more information. Elara nodded, understanding the need for caution. I will seek out the kingdom's scholars. Perhaps they can help us understand these visions better. With her father's blessing, Elara visited the scholars who resided in the castle's east wing. The scholars were a group of wise men and women, dedicated to the study of ancient texts and mystical phenomena. They listened with great interest as Elara recounted her experiences with the tulip. Princess, what you describe is extraordinary, said Master Thaddeus, the head scholar, stroking his long silver beard. This tulip appears to be a relic of great power, possibly linked to the ancient gods. The visions it grants you are a form of divine insight, but interpreting them correctly will be crucial. Elara nodded, absorbing the scholar's words. How can I ensure I am interpreting them correctly, Master Thaddeus? Visions can be enigmatic, Thaddeus replied. They often present symbols and scenes that must be deciphered with care. Trust your instincts, but also seek the counsel of those you trust. And remember, the future is not set in stone. Your actions can change the course of events. Encouraged by the scholar's advice, Elara returned to her chambers, determined to learn all she could from the tulip. She spent hours studying its petals, hoping for more visions that might reveal the masked figure's identity and their plans. As days passed, Elara's bond with the tulip grew. She began to understand the subtle nuances of its magic, recognizing the faint glow that preceded each vision. With each glimpse of the future, her resolve to protect Eldoria strengthened. One evening, as she gazed at the tulip, another vision took hold. This time, she saw a familiar face. Lord Cedric, her father's most trusted advisor. He was speaking with the masked figure, their conversation filled with treachery and deceit. Elara's heart pounded in her chest as she watched, realizing the depth of the conspiracy against her kingdom. The vision faded, leaving Elara breathless and shaken. She knew now that the threat was closer than she had ever imagined. The masked figure had a powerful ally within the castle walls, and time was running out. Elara steeled herself for the challenges ahead, determined to use the tulip's visions to outwit her enemies and save Eldoria from the impending darkness. With the revelation that Lord Cedric was conspiring with the masked figure, Princess Elara's resolve hardened. She understood the gravity of the situation and the peril that lurked within the very heart of Eldoria. The tulip's visions were not only a guide, but a warning, urging her to act with both caution and courage. Elara decided to keep her discoveries secret for the time being. She needed more information before confronting Cedric or alarming her father. The vision had given her a glimpse of the enemy, but she needed to uncover the full scope of the conspiracy. The first step was to test Cedric's loyalty without arousing suspicion. The following morning, Elara requested a private audience with Cedric under the pretense of seeking advice on a matter of state. Cedric, ever loyal and seemingly benign, agreed readily. As they sat in the grand hall, Elara observed him closely, searching for any sign of deceit. "Lord Cedric," she began, her voice measured and calm, "I have been troubled by recent events and the unsettling prophecies that have come to light. I fear that we may have enemies closer than we think." Cedric's eyes narrowed slightly, but he maintained his composed demeanor. "Princess, I assure you, our kingdom's defenses are strong, and our allies are steadfast. However, your concerns are valid. We must remain vigilant." Elara nodded, masking her mistrust. "I agree. I have been seeking the counsel of the scholars and the seer, hoping to gain more insight into these dark times. Your wisdom is invaluable to us, Cedric." Cedric bowed his head in a show of humility. "It is my honor to serve you and the king, Princess. I will do everything in my power to protect Eldoria." After the meeting, Elara felt a mix of frustration and determination. Cedric's words were impeccable, but she knew his loyalty was a facade. She decided to set a trap, a subtle test to confirm her suspicions. That evening, Elara called upon her trusted friend and confidant, Sir Alden, the captain of the Royal Guard. She shared her vision with him, his eyes widening in shock and concern. "We must be careful, Alden," she whispered. "Cedric is cunning and dangerous. We need to expose his treachery without alerting him to our plans." Alden nodded, his expression grim. "What do you propose, Princess?" "We will create a fictitious plan, a ruse to protect a valuable artifact from falling into enemy hands," Elara explained. "We will tell Cedric about it and see how he reacts. If he is indeed conspiring with our enemies, he will undoubtedly act on this information." Alden agreed, and they set the plan in motion. The next day, Elara approached Cedric again, this time with a sense of urgency. "Cedric, I have received information about a potential threat to the kingdom's most sacred relic. We must move it to a safe location immediately." Cedric listened intently, his face a mask of concern. "Of course, Princess. I will see to it personally." Elara watched as Cedric left to make arrangements, her heart pounding. She and Alden waited in the shadows, prepared to follow him. Hours later, under the cover of darkness, Cedric slipped out of the castle and made his way to a hidden meeting place in the forest. Elara and Alden followed at a safe distance, their presence concealed by the dense foliage. As they approached, they saw Cedric speaking with the masked figure. Elara strained to hear their conversation, her heart sinking as she caught snippets of their plans to overthrow the king and seize control of Eldoria. Satisfied that her suspicions were confirmed, Elara and Alden retreated to the castle, their minds racing with plans to counter the impending threat. The vision had been accurate, and now Elara had the proof she needed to act. Returning to her chambers, Elara once again touched the tulip's petals, hoping for another vision to guide her next steps. The tulip's glow intensified, and she was pulled into another glimpse of the future. This time, she saw a fierce battle, the castle engulfed in chaos, and the masked figure standing over a fallen king. Elara's resolve solidified. She knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger, but she was determined to protect her kingdom and her father. With the tulip's visions as her guide, she would outmaneuver her enemies and rewrite the dark prophecy that threatened Eldoria's future. The evidence of Lord Cedric's treachery weighed heavily on Elara's heart. Though she had confirmed her suspicions, the path ahead was unclear. She needed further guidance to interpret the visions and to understand how to thwart the conspiracy brewing within the castle walls. With determination in her stride, she decided to seek the wisdom of the kingdom's ancient seer, a recluse known only as Sage Theron. Sage Theron lived in a secluded grove at the edge of the Enchanted forest, a place few dared to venture. The forest was known for its mystical creatures and enchanted pathways, a labyrinth that could confound even the most experienced travelers. Elara, accompanied by Sir Alden, prepared for the journey, aware that time was of the essence. As they rode through the dense forest, the atmosphere grew increasingly magical. The trees whispered secrets, and the air shimmered with enchantment. Elara felt the tulip's presence keenly, its magic resonating with the forest's own. After hours of navigating the winding paths, they arrived at the grove where Sage Theron resided. The seer's abode was a simple yet mystical dwelling, surrounded by ancient oaks and luminous flowers. Elara and Alden dismounted their horses and approached the entrance. Before they could knock, the door creaked open, revealing a figure clad in flowing robes, eyes gleaming with ageless wisdom. "Princess Elara," Theron greeted, his voice like the rustle of leaves. "I have been expecting you." Elara bowed respectfully. "Sage Theron, I seek your counsel. I have discovered a prophecy that threatens our kingdom, and a tulip that reveals visions of the future. I need your wisdom to understand and interpret these visions." Theron nodded, stepping aside to let them enter. The interior of his abode was filled with ancient artifacts and scrolls, the air thick with the scent of incense. He gestured for them to sit, and then carefully examined the tulip, its glow reflecting in his deep-set eyes. "This tulip is a gift from the gods," Theron began, his voice calm and measured. "Its petals reveal glimpses of possible futures, not certainties. Each vision is a thread in the tapestry of fate, which can be woven differently based on your actions." Elara listened intently, absorbing his words. How can I ensure that I interpret these visions correctly? And how can I change the course of the dark prophecy? Visions are often symbolic, Theron explained. They must be deciphered with intuition and wisdom. Trust your instincts, Princess, but also seek the counsel of those you trust. The future is malleable, shaped by choices and actions. To change the prophecy, you must alter the events leading to it. Ilara's mind raced with the implications of his words. I have seen a vision of betrayal within the castle. One of my father's most trusted advisors is plotting against him. How do I expose this treachery without causing panic and chaos? Theron smiled gently. You are wise to seek subtlety. Use the Tulip's visions to gather more information. Uncover the conspirators' plans and outmaneuver them. But remember, not all battles are fought with swords. Diplomacy, alliances, and trust will be your greatest weapons. Feeling a renewed sense of purpose, Ilara thanked the seer for his guidance. As she and Alden prepared to leave, Theron placed a hand on her shoulder. One more thing, Princess. The Tulip's power is vast, but it is also draining. Use it sparingly, and do not become reliant on its visions alone. Your strength lies within you, not just in the magic you wield. Ilara nodded, understanding the weight of his advice. With a final glance at the seer's wise eyes, she and Alden mounted their horses and began the journey back to the castle. The path ahead was still fraught with danger, but Ilara felt more prepared to face it. She would use the Tulip's visions as a guide, but she would also trust in her own instincts and the loyalty of those who stood by her side. As they rode through the enchanted forest, Ilara's mind was already formulating a plan. She would gather her allies, subtly test the loyalties of those around her, and use every ounce of wisdom and courage she possessed to protect Eldoria from the impending darkness. The future was not yet written, and she was determined to ensure it would be one of light and hope, not shadow and despair. Upon returning to the castle, Princess Ilara felt a renewed sense of purpose and urgency. The sage's words echoed in her mind, reminding her that the Tulip's visions were tools, not certainties, and that her own wisdom and courage would be crucial in navigating the treacherous path ahead. She resolved to act swiftly and decisively to uncover the full extent of the conspiracy against her father and her kingdom. Ilara's first task was to discreetly gather information about those closest to the king. She began by observing the court's daily activities, paying close attention to the interactions and behaviors of the courtiers and advisors. Her keen eyes missed nothing. The subtle exchanges, the furtive glances, and the hushed conversations that took place in shadowed alcoves and behind closed doors. One evening, as she wandered the castle halls, Ilara overheard a conversation between two guards stationed near the throne room. They spoke in low tones, unaware of her presence. "I heard Lord Cedric was seen leaving the castle late at night. one guard murmured. What business could he possibly have at such an hour? The other guard shrugged. Who knows? But it's not the first time. There's been talk of secret meetings, though no one seems to know with whom. Ilara's heart quickened. The rumors confirmed her suspicions, but she needed concrete evidence to act. She decided to enlist the help of Sir Alden once more. The loyal captain of the guard had proven his worth time and again, and Ilara trusted him implicitly. That night, under the cover of darkness, Ilara and Alden devised a plan to follow Cedric and uncover his secret meetings. They donned dark cloaks and moved stealthily through the castle, careful to avoid detection. When Cedric finally emerged from his chambers and slipped out of the castle, they followed at a safe distance. The moon cast an eerie glow over the landscape as they trailed Cedric through the winding paths of the Enchanted forest. The journey was long and treacherous, but Ilara's determination never wavered. She knew that this was her chance to uncover the truth and protect her kingdom from the impending threat. After what felt like hours, Cedric arrived at a hidden clearing deep within the forest. There, waiting for him, was the masked figure from Ilara's visions. The figure's dark cloak billowed in the night breeze, and their face remained obscured, shrouded in mystery. Ilara and Alden concealed themselves behind a thicket, straining to hear the conversation between Cedric and the masked figure. Their voices were low, but the tension in their words was palpable. "Everything is proceeding as planned," Cedric said, his tone filled with malice. "The king suspects nothing, and the princess is too naive to see the truth." The masked figure nodded. "Good. Our allies are in place, and soon Eldoria will fall. The prophecy will be fulfilled, and we will seize control." Ilara's heart pounded in her chest. She had the proof she needed. But the magnitude of the conspiracy was far greater than she had anticipated. The masked figure had allies within the kingdom, and their plan was already in motion. As the meeting concluded, Ilara and Alden retreated silently, making their way back to the castle with heavy hearts. They had uncovered the hidden enemy, but the battle to protect Eldoria had only just begun. Back in her chambers, Ilara once again touched the tulip's petals, hoping for another vision to guide her next steps. The tulip's glow intensified, and a vision took hold. A vision of a grand battle, the castle engulfed in chaos, and the masked figure standing over a fallen king. Ilara knew that the path ahead would be perilous, but she was determined to fight with every ounce of strength she possessed. The future was not yet written, and she would use the tulip's visions, her own wisdom, and the loyalty of her allies to alter the dark course that threatened her kingdom. With a renewed sense of purpose, Ilara began to formulate a plan. She would gather her trusted allies, uncover the full extent of the conspiracy, and prepare for the battles that lay ahead. The fate of Eldoria rested in her hands, and she would stop at nothing to ensure its survival. The hidden enemy had been revealed, and now the true fight for the kingdom's future could begin. As dawn broke over Eldoria, casting a golden hue across the castle's ancient stone walls, Princess Elara knew the time had come to take action. The revelations of the previous night had left her with a heavy burden, but also with a clear sense of purpose. She would not allow her kingdom to fall into the hands of traitors. Elara called for a secret council with Sir Alden and her closest confidants, those she trusted with her life. Among them were Lady Seraphina, a formidable sorceress with a keen intellect, and Captain Thorn, a seasoned warrior renowned for his unwavering loyalty. Together, they formed a formidable team, united by their love for Eldoria and their determination to protect it. In the dimly lit chamber, Elara shared the details of her visions and the treacherous plot she had uncovered. The gravity of her words was not lost on her allies, who listened with rapt attention and growing resolve. "We must act swiftly and decisively," Elara concluded. "Cedric and his allies are planning to strike soon. We need to expose them and thwart their plans before it's too late." Sir Alden nodded, his expression grim. "We should start by gathering more information. If we can intercept their communications or discover their meeting places, we'll have the evidence we need to confront them." Lady Seraphina raised a hand, her eyes alight with determination. "I can cast a spell of invisibility, allowing us to move undetected within the castle. We can listen to their conversations and gather the proof we need." Elara agreed, and they set their plan into motion. That night, under the cover of darkness and aided by Seraphina's magic, Elara and her allies moved through the castle like shadows. Their first target was Cedric's chambers, where they hoped to find incriminating evidence. As they approached, they heard voices within. Elara signaled for silence, and they pressed their ears to the door, straining to hear the conversation inside. Cedric's voice was unmistakable, laced with arrogance and deceit. "Our preparations are nearly complete," Cedric said. "The king's forces are strong, but they will be no match for our combined might. When the time comes, Eldoria will be ours." Another voice, one Elara didn't recognize, replied, "What of the princess? She's clever and has been asking too many questions." Cedric laughed softly. "Elara is a mere child, easily misled. She will be dealt with in due time. For now, we focus on ensuring the king's downfall." Elara's blood boiled at Cedric's words, but she forced herself to remain calm. They needed more than just overheard conversations. They needed tangible proof. They waited until the voices inside fell silent and Cedric left the room. Once the coast was clear, Seraphina cast a spell to unlock the door, and they slipped inside. The room was filled with maps, documents, and sealed letters. Elara and her allies searched quickly but thoroughly. taking care to leave no trace of their presence. Among the papers, they found detailed plans for a coordinated attack on the castle, lists of names, presumably those loyal to Cedric, and correspondence with the masked figure. Ilara's heart pounded as she realized the full extent of the conspiracy. They had the proof they needed, but now came the most dangerous part: exposing Cedric and his allies without plunging the kingdom into chaos. They returned to Ilara's chambers to discuss their next steps. Sir Alden suggested summoning a trusted group of the king's guards to witness the confrontation and ensure that Cedric and his accomplices could not escape or retaliate. Ilara agreed, and they spent the following day preparing. When the time came, Ilara requested an urgent audience with her father, King Alaric, ensuring that Cedric and the other conspirators would be present. As they gathered in the grand hall, tension crackled in the air. Ilara stood before the assembled courtiers, her voice steady and clear. "Father, I have uncovered a grave conspiracy against you and the kingdom. Those who stand before you have betrayed your trust and plotted to seize the throne." Gasps and murmurs of disbelief echoed through the hall, but Ilara pressed on, presenting the evidence they had gathered. The sealed letters, the maps, and the detailed plans all pointed to Cedric's guilt. The king's face darkened with anger and sorrow as he realized the depth of the betrayal. Cedric attempted to deny the accusations, but the evidence was irrefutable. The king's guards, who had been briefed and prepared, moved swiftly to arrest Cedric and his co-conspirators. As they were led away, Ilara felt a surge of relief, but also a deep sense of resolve. This was only the beginning. With the immediate threat neutralized, Ilara knew they had to prepare for the battles yet to come. The dark prophecy had not been averted, merely delayed. The masked figure and their allies were still at large, and the true fight for Eldoria's future was just beginning. Chapter 2: The Path to Prevention. The sun rose over Eldoria, casting its first light on a kingdom now aware of the treachery within its walls. Princess Ilara, though relieved that Cedric and his conspirators had been apprehended, knew that this was merely the first battle in a war against an unseen enemy. The masked figure from her visions, the architect of the dark prophecy, was still at large. To protect her kingdom, Ilara needed allies, powerful ones. Ilara stood on the castle balcony, overlooking the sprawling kingdom. Below her, the townsfolk went about their daily lives, unaware of the dark forces plotting their doom. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. She turned to Sir Alden, who stood beside her, his gaze as steely as ever. "Alden, we must reach out to our neighboring kingdoms and secure their aid. The enemy we face is formidable, and we cannot defeat them alone." Alden nodded. "I will send messengers at once. We must act swiftly, for time is not on our side." Ilara's thoughts turned to the neighboring kingdoms of Solara and Aranthia. Solara was ruled by Queen Leora, a wise and compassionate leader with whom Eldoria had shared a long-standing alliance. Aranthia, on the other hand, was governed by King Darien, a fierce warrior known for his strategic mind and vast armies. Ilara knew that convincing these rulers to join her cause would be crucial. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparations. Ilara composed heartfelt letters to Queen Leora and King Darien, detailing the threat they faced and pleading for their assistance. She emphasized the urgency and the need for unity in the face of a common enemy. Messengers were dispatched with the letters, riding swiftly through the forests and mountains that separated the kingdoms. As they awaited responses, Ilara and her allies fortified the castle and trained the soldiers, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Lady Seraphina's magic proved invaluable in enhancing their defenses, while Captain Thorn drilled the troops with relentless vigor. Ilara herself spent long hours in the war room, studying maps and strategizing with her advisors. Days passed, and the tension in the air grew palpable. Finally, the messengers returned, bearing replies from Solara and Aranthia. Ilara's heart raced as she read the letters. Queen Leora's response was warm and reassuring. Princess Ilara, your plea has touched my heart. Eldoria has always been a friend to Solara, and we will stand by your side in this dark hour. I will send my finest soldiers and magicians to aid you. King Darien's reply was more measured, but no less supportive. Princess Ilara, the threat you describe is indeed grave. Aranthia will not sit idly by while darkness threatens our world. I will bring my armies to your aid, and together we will crush this enemy. Relief washed over Ilara as she shared the news with her council. The arrival of reinforcements would bolster their chances of defeating the masked figure and his dark forces. But Ilara knew that this was only the beginning. The battle ahead would test their strength, their unity, and their resolve. The days that followed were filled with activity as the allies from Solara and Aranthia began to arrive. The castle grounds buzzed with the presence of soldiers, magicians, and war machines. Queen Leora herself arrived with her entourage, her regal presence bringing a sense of calm and hope. King Darien followed soon after, his imposing figure commanding respect and fear. Ilara greeted them with gratitude and determination. Thank you for coming, Your Majesties. Your support means everything to us. Together, we will face this darkness and emerge victorious. Queen Leora smiled warmly. Eldoria has always been a beacon of light. We will ensure that light never fades. King Darien clasped Ilara's hand firmly. We fight as one. Let our enemies tremble, for they have awoken a force they cannot hope to defeat. With their allies gathered and their forces united, Ilara felt a renewed sense of hope. The dark prophecy had foreseen the fall of Eldoria, But she was determined to rewrite that destiny. The masked figure's plans would be thwarted, and the kingdom would stand strong against the shadows. The path to prevention was fraught with danger, but Elara knew they would prevail. As the armies of Eldoria, Solara, and Aranthia prepared for the coming battle, Elara turned once more to the mystic tulip. Its petals glowed with an otherworldly light, and she touched them, seeking guidance. The vision that followed was brief but powerful. A vision of unity, of allies standing together against the darkness, and of a future where the light of Eldoria shone brighter than ever. With the arrival of reinforcements from Solara and Aranthia, the castle of Eldoria became a bustling hub of activity. Soldiers trained rigorously, magicians cast protective spells, and the air buzzed with a mix of anticipation and tension. Princess Elara, despite the weight of her responsibilities, found solace in the camaraderie and determination of her allies. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the castle grounds, Elara sought the sanctuary of her chambers. She needed a moment of quiet, a chance to gather her thoughts and consult the mystic tulip once more. Its visions had guided her thus far, and she hoped it would provide the clarity she needed for the battles ahead. Elara gently touched the tulip's petals, feeling their soft, almost ethereal texture. The tulip glowed brightly, and a vision enveloped her. This time, she saw the castle engulfed in darkness, shadowy figures moving stealthily through the corridors. She saw Queen Leora and King Darian fighting valiantly, but being overwhelmed by an unseen force. Finally, she saw herself standing alone in a grand hall, facing the masked figure whose eyes burned with malice. The vision faded, leaving Elara with a sense of urgency and foreboding. She knew that the masked figure's attack was imminent, and that they had to be prepared for an assault from within as well as from without. She couldn't afford to let her guard down, even for a moment. Elara hurried to the war room, where her closest advisors and allies were gathered. She shared the vision, her voice steady but urgent. We must be vigilant. The tulip has shown me that our enemies will strike soon, and they will come from within our walls as well as from outside. Queen Leora nodded, her expression resolute. We must strengthen our defenses and ensure that every corner of the castle is guarded. No one should be above suspicion. King Darian agreed. We need to establish a network of scouts and informants. If there are traitors among us, we will root them out and deal with them swiftly. Sir Alden, ever the strategist, suggested a detailed plan. We should set up checkpoints throughout the castle and implement a system of passwords for our guards. Any deviation from these protocols will be met with immediate investigation. Elara listened, her mind racing with possibilities. We also need to protect our key allies and leaders. If the masked figure is targeting us, They will likely try to take out those in command to sow chaos and confusion. With the plan in place, the castle was transformed into a fortress of vigilance. Guards patrolled every corridor, and magicians reinforced the protective wards. Elara herself took part in the preparations, her presence inspiring confidence and determination among the troops. Despite the heightened security, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that danger was lurking just beyond their sight. She spent long hours in the castle library, poring over ancient texts and seeking any additional knowledge that might help them. The Tulip's visions had guided her this far, but she knew that knowledge and preparation were equally important. One night, as she studied a particularly ancient manuscript, Elara felt a strange sensation, a tingling at the back of her neck, as if she were being watched. She turned to see Lady Seraphina standing in the doorway, her eyes filled with concern. "Princess, you've been working tirelessly. You need rest," Seraphina said gently. Elara shook her head. "I cannot rest while our kingdom is in peril. There is still so much we don't know about our enemy." Seraphina stepped closer, her expression softening. "I understand, Elara, but you are our leader, and we need you at your best. The Tulip's warning has given us the chance to prepare. Trust in your allies and in the strength we have gathered." Elara sighed, knowing Seraphina was right. She closed the manuscript and stood, feeling the weight of exhaustion settle over her. "You're right. I'll rest, but only for a short while." As she left the library, Elara cast one last glance at the tulip, its glow a reminder of the battles yet to come. She knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she was ready to face them head-on. The tulip's warning had given her the clarity she needed, and with the strength of her allies, she was determined to protect Eldoria and rewrite the prophecy that threatened their future. The days following the preparation were filled with an uneasy calm. The castle of Eldoria was a hive of activity, its corridors bustling with soldiers and magicians, each working tirelessly to ensure the kingdom's defenses were impenetrable. Princess Elara, despite the relative peace, could not shake the sense of imminent danger that loomed over them like a dark cloud. It was early morning when the disturbance came. A sudden alarm echoed through the castle, jolting Elara from her sleep. Her heart raced as she threw on her cloak and hurried to the war room. Sir Alden, Lady Seraphina, and Captain Thorn were already there, their expressions grim. "What's happening?" Elara asked, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Sir Alden glanced at her with a troubled expression. "We've received word from our scouts. There's been a breach in the outer perimeter. We believe it's the masked figure's forces." Elara's pulse quickened. "We need to respond immediately. If they've breached the outer defenses, they could be anywhere within the castle." Lady Seraphina nodded. "I will cast a protective barrier around the castle to prevent further infiltration. We must act quickly to locate and neutralize the intruders." Elara and her allies moved swiftly through the castle, rallying the troops and setting up defensive positions. The once orderly castle grounds were now a battlefield, with soldiers taking their places and archers readying their bows. As Elara made her way to the outer walls, she spotted a group of soldiers engaged in a fierce skirmish with a band of dark-clad invaders. The masked figures' minions were formidable opponents, their movements swift and coordinated. Elara joined the fray, her sword flashing as she fought alongside her comrades. The battle raged on, and Elara's heart was filled with a mix of fear and determination. She had trained for moments like this, but the reality of combat was far more intense than any practice session. Her focus was unwavering as she pressed forward, driven by the need to protect her kingdom. Amidst the chaos, she caught sight of a familiar face, one of Cedric's former allies, now fighting for the masked figure. The traitor's presence confirmed her worst fears. The enemy had allies within their ranks. Elara fought her way toward the traitor, her eyes locked on him. With a swift strike, she incapacitated him and forced him to surrender. "Tell me what you know," she demanded, her voice cold and commanding. The traitor, his face twisted in fear, stammered, "The masked figure. They have a hidden base. It's in the forest, beyond the old ruins. They plan to attack the castle with dark magic." Elara's heart sank at the revelation. The hidden base was a significant threat, and if they were preparing dark magic, the danger was even greater. "Thank you for your cooperation," she said tersely, before turning back to the battle. As the fighting continued, Lady Seraphina's barrier took effect, pushing back the remaining invaders. The tide of the battle began to turn in their favor, but Elara knew that the true challenge lay ahead. The masked figure's base was still out there, and they needed to act quickly to prevent a full-scale assault. After the invaders were driven away, Elara convened a council with her allies. The war room was filled with tension as they reviewed the information they had gathered. "The hidden base is a major threat," Elara said. "We need to locate it and neutralize the dark magic before it can be used against us." Queen Leora nodded. "Solara's forces can aid in this mission. We have experienced scouts and trackers who can help you navigate the forest." King Darian agreed. "Aranthia's army is ready to assist. We will gather a strike force and move against the enemy's base." With their plan set, Elara prepared for the next phase of their campaign. The stakes were high, and the masked figure's dark magic posed a serious threat. The castle was safe for now, but the true battle awaited them in the depths of the forest. As night fell, Elara stood on the castle's battlements, gazing out into the darkness. The moonlight bathed the land in a silvery glow, and she could see the faint outline of the forest beyond. The masked figure's hidden base was out there, waiting to be discovered. Elara took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenge ahead. The battle had only just begun, and the fight to protect Eldoria was far from over. But with her allies by her side and the strength of the mystic Tulip guiding her, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. As she turned to leave, she caught a glimpse of the tulip in her chambers, its petals glowing softly. The tulip's light was a beacon of hope, a reminder that they had the power to shape their own destiny. With a final glance at the forest, Elara resolved to face the darkness head-on and protect her kingdom from the impending threat. The early morning light filtered through the dense canopy of the Forest of Shadows as Princess Elara, accompanied by her trusted allies, ventured into the heart of the ancient woods. The forest was a labyrinth of twisted trees and tangled undergrowth, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, broken only by the distant calls of birds and the crunch of leaves beneath their boots. Elara led the expedition with determination, her heart set on finding the masked figure's hidden base before it could launch its dark assault on Eldoria. Queen Leora's scouts moved ahead, their sharp eyes scanning for any signs of the enemy, while King Darian's soldiers formed a protective perimeter around the group. Lady Seraphina, her senses attuned to the magical currents of the forest, walked beside Elara, her eyes glowing with a faint luminescence. The group made slow but steady progress, navigating the tangled forest with the aid of the scouts' expert knowledge. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig put them on edge, but Elara's focus remained unwavering. She had a sense of purpose that drove her forward, and the stakes of their mission made her determination all the more resolute. Hours passed as they delved deeper into the forest, the sunlight barely penetrating the dense foliage. The air grew colder, and an unsettling quiet settled over them. Elara's thoughts were a whirl of strategy and concern, her mind constantly shifting between the immediate dangers of the forest and the looming threat of the dark magic they sought to thwart. Suddenly, a shout rang out from the front. "We found something!" The voice belonged to one of Queen Leora's scouts. Elara's heart raced as she and her allies hurried forward, pushing through the underbrush until they reached a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient stone archway, partially obscured by vines and moss. The archway was adorned with runes that glowed faintly with a dark, malevolent light. The sight sent a shiver down Elara's spine. This was no ordinary structure. It was a gateway, and it exuded a palpable aura of dark magic. "This must be the entrance to the masked figure's base," Elara said, her voice low and determined. "We need to proceed with caution." Lady Seraphina stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she examined the runes. "These runes are ancient and powerful. They seem to be a warding spell designed to protect the entrance. We'll need to bypass it carefully." Queen Leora's scouts began to set up a perimeter around the clearing, their eyes alert for any signs of movement. King Darian's soldiers prepared their weapons, ready for any confrontation that might arise. The tension in the air was almost tangible as the group prepared to breach the dark gateway. Seraphina raised her hands, weaving a complex pattern of magic in the air. The runes on the archway shifted and writhed, reacting to her spell. Elara watched in awe as Seraphina's magic battled the dark wards, the two forces clashing with a crackling energy. After a tense few moments, Seraphina's spell broke through the wards, causing the runes to dim and the archway to emit a low, resonant hum. The way was now clear. Seraphina, visibly exhausted but determined, turned to Elara. "The path is open, but we must be vigilant. The base will likely be heavily guarded and filled with traps." Elara nodded, her resolve hardening. "We must be prepared for anything. Let's move forward." With the archway as their guide, the group entered the hidden base. The interior was a stark contrast to the natural world outside. The walls were lined with dark, polished stone, and the air was thick with the scent of incense and dark magic. Flickering torches cast eerie shadows on the walls, revealing intricate symbols and depictions of ominous rituals. As they progressed deeper into the base, Elara's senses were on high alert. The base was clearly designed to be both a fortress and a stronghold of dark magic. The hallways were lined with magical traps and enchantments, which Lady Seraphina carefully neutralized as they advanced. Suddenly, a loud, malevolent laugh echoed through the corridors. The sound was chilling, and Elara felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The masked figure had made their presence known, and it was clear that they were ready for a confrontation. The group moved quickly, following the sound of the laughter to a large chamber at the heart of the base. The chamber was vast and ominous, with dark magic swirling in the air like a living entity. At the far end of the chamber stood the masked figure, their silhouette shrouded in shadow. Elara stepped forward, her sword drawn and her gaze fixed on the enemy. "This ends now," she declared, her voice echoing with determination. The masked figure's laugh grew louder, more mocking. "You are brave, Princess Elara, but bravery alone will not save you from the darkness that awaits." As the confrontation began, Elara knew that this battle would test their strength and resolve. The outcome of their struggle would determine the fate of Eldoria and the future they fought so hard to protect. With her allies by her side and the mystic Tulip's guidance in her heart, Elara prepared to face the masked figure and the dark magic that threatened their world. The chamber seemed to pulse with dark energy as Princess Elara and her allies faced the masked figure, whose silhouette loomed ominously in the flickering torchlight. The air crackled with malevolent power, and Elara could feel the weight of the dark magic pressing down on them. The masked figure's presence was both commanding and sinister, a dark force that threatened to overwhelm them. Ilara's grip tightened on her sword as she took a step forward. You will not succeed in your plans. Eldoria will be protected. The masked figure chuckled, the sound reverberating through the chamber like the rustling of dry leaves. Foolish princess. The prophecy cannot be changed. The darkness will come, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. Lady Seraphina, standing beside Ilara, raised her hands and began chanting an incantation. Her voice was steady and calm, her magic weaving a protective barrier around the group. We must counter the dark magic he wields. Ilara, focus on his attacks. We'll handle the defenses. King Darian and his soldiers moved into formation, their weapons ready as they prepared for the battle ahead. The air was thick with anticipation, the tension palpable as they braced themselves for the clash. The masked figure raised a hand, and dark energy surged from his fingertips, forming a swirling vortex of shadowy tendrils. The tendrils lashed out, seeking to ensnare and incapacitate Ilara and her allies. With the swift movement, Ilara deflected the attack with her sword, the blade shimmering with a bright protective light. Seraphina's barrier absorbed some of the dark energy, but it was clear that the masked figure's magic was powerful and relentless. Ilara's focus was razor-sharp as she engaged in combat, her sword slicing through the darkness with precision. Each strike was guided by the mystic tulip's light, its glow a beacon in the swirling chaos. Despite their best efforts, the masked figure's attacks were overwhelming. He seemed to anticipate their every move, his dark magic flowing like a malevolent tide. Ilara could see the strain on her allies' faces, their exhaustion mounting as they fought to hold their ground. In a desperate move, Ilara took a deep breath and invoked the power of the mystic tulip. She held it aloft, its petals glowing with a brilliant, otherworldly light. The light intensified, pushing back against the encroaching darkness and creating a temporary shield around her. The masked figure's eyes narrowed, and he unleashed a powerful wave of dark magic in an attempt to shatter the protective barrier. The force of the blast rocked the chamber, sending debris flying and causing the protective barrier to waver. Ilara struggled to maintain her focus, her heart pounding as she fought against the overwhelming force. Lady Seraphina's incantations grew more fervent, her magic weaving intricate patterns in the air. "We need to find the source of his power," she shouted over the roar of battle. "It must be something within the base." Ilara's gaze swept across the chamber, searching for any clue that might reveal the masked figure's source of power. Her eyes landed on a pedestal at the far end of the room, upon which rested a dark crystal pulsating with sinister energy. The crystal was the focal point of the dark magic, and destroying it would weaken the masked figure's power. "Over there!" Ilara called out, pointing to the pedestal. "The crystal! We need to destroy it!" With renewed determination, Ilara and her allies fought their way toward the pedestal. The masked figure, realizing their intent, intensified his attacks, sending waves of dark energy to impede their progress. Ilara's sword blazed with a fierce light as she cut through the onslaught, her resolve unwavering. King Darian and his soldiers provided cover, their weapons flashing as they battled the dark minions that swarmed the chamber. Lady Seraphina's barrier shielded them from the worst of the attacks, but the strain was evident in her weary face. Ilara reached the pedestal, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She raised her sword high, channeling the mystic Tulip's light into a concentrated beam. The light struck the dark crystal, and the room was filled with a blinding, purifying glow. The crystal shattered with a resounding crack, its dark energy dissipating in a wave of cleansing light. The masked figure's power faltered, his dark magic unraveling as the crystal's influence was broken. He staggered, his form wavering as if the very shadows that sustained him were retreating. Ilara seized the moment, charging at the masked figure with a final, decisive strike. Her sword pierced through the darkness, and the masked figure let out a piercing cry as he was engulfed in a burst of light. With the final shattering force, the masked figure's form disintegrated, leaving only a faint echo of his malevolent presence. The chamber fell silent, the oppressive weight of dark magic lifting as the last traces of the masked figure's power vanished. Ilara and her allies stood amidst the ruins, their breaths heavy and their bodies weary but victorious. Lady Seraphina, though exhausted, managed a weary smile. We've done it. The threat has been neutralized. Ilara looked around at her allies, her heart swelling with gratitude and relief. Thank you, everyone. We've prevented the dark prophecy from coming to pass. As they made their way out of the hidden base, Ilara's thoughts turned to the future. The battle had been fierce, and the cost had been high. But their victory had safeguarded Eldoria. With the masked figure's defeat, the kingdom could begin the process of healing and rebuilding. Ilara held the mystic tulip close, its petals still glowing with a soft, reassuring light. The tulip had guided them through the darkness and had been a beacon of hope in their darkest hour. As they emerged into the light of day, Ilara felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. The path ahead was still uncertain, but with her allies by her side and the wisdom of the mystic tulip guiding her, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The sun's rays broke through the canopy of the forest of shadows, casting a golden hue upon the weary travelers as they emerged from the hidden base. The forest, once dark and oppressive, now seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, its shadows retreating as if in acknowledgement of the victory they had achieved. Princess Ilara and her allies made their way back to Eldoria, their steps lighter with each passing moment. As they approached the outskirts of the kingdom, the news of their success spread quickly. The people of Eldoria gathered in anticipation, their faces a mix of hope and relief. The dark clouds that had loomed over their hearts for so long were beginning to lift, and the atmosphere was charged with a sense of renewal. Queen Leora and King Darian awaited their return at the castle gates, their expressions a mixture of pride and concern. Elara's heart swelled with gratitude as she saw her parents and her ally by her side. The reunion was emotional, marked by heartfelt embraces and tears of relief. "You've done it, Elara," Queen Leora said, her voice choked with emotion. "You've saved our kingdom." Elara nodded, her own eyes misting. "We couldn't have done it without the bravery and support of everyone who fought beside us." King Darian clapped Elara on the shoulder, his eyes reflecting pride. "Your courage and determination have been nothing short of inspiring. Eldoria owes you a great debt." The castle's great hall was soon filled with celebrations. Banners were hung, and the sounds of music and laughter echoed through the halls. Elara and her companions were honored with a grand feast, their achievements celebrated with toasts and heartfelt speeches. The mystic tulip, now a symbol of hope and victory, was placed in a place of honor, its petals glowing softly as if in quiet triumph. As the festivities continued, Elara found a quiet moment to reflect. She stepped out onto the castle's balcony, the cool evening breeze brushing against her face. The night sky was clear, and the stars twinkled like a sea of diamonds. She thought of the journey they had undertaken, the battles fought, and the challenges overcome. Lady Seraphina joined her on the balcony. Her gaze also turned skyward. "It's a beautiful night, isn't it?" Elara nodded. "It is. It feels like a new beginning for us all." Seraphina smiled, her expression serene. "The mystic tulip has brought us guidance and light in our darkest hour. But remember, its power is not just in revealing the future, but in guiding us to shape it." Elara turned to her, a thoughtful expression on her face. "You're right. The tulip showed us a path, but it was our choices that determined the outcome." The two stood in companionable silence, the weight of their experiences settling over them like a comforting cloak. The kingdom was safe, and the dark prophecy had been averted. But Elara knew that their work was far from over. Eldoria's recovery would take time, and there would be new challenges to face. As the night deepened, Elara rejoined the festivities, her heart lighter and her spirit renewed. She danced and celebrated with her friends and family, their joy a testament to their shared victory. The laughter and music were a reminder of the resilience and strength of their kingdom. The following morning, Elara and her allies gathered in the castle's great hall for a final debriefing. The mood was hopeful and optimistic as they discussed the next steps for Eldoria. The kingdom needed to rebuild, and there were many tasks ahead to ensure that the peace they had fought for would endure. Elara addressed her allies, her voice filled with determination. We have faced great darkness and emerged victorious. Now it is our duty to ensure that Eldoria flourishes and that the light we fought for continues to shine. King Darian nodded in agreement. We will work together to restore what was lost and strengthen our defenses. Our kingdom has proven its resilience, and we will face any future challenges with the same courage and unity. Queen Leora, her eyes reflecting pride and affection, added, "Our people look to us for leadership and hope. We must guide them with wisdom and compassion." As the meeting concluded, Elara felt a deep sense of purpose. The journey they had undertaken had been arduous, but it had forged bonds of trust and friendship that would endure. The mystic Tulip's light had illuminated their path, and it would continue to inspire them as they moved forward. With the renewed sense of hope and determination, Elara stepped out into the bright morning light. The future of Eldoria was still unfolding, and while challenges lay ahead, she knew that with her allies by her side and the wisdom gained from their journey, they would face whatever came next with unwavering resolve. As the kingdom began the process of healing and rebuilding, Elara looked forward to the future with optimism. The lessons learned and the victories achieved would guide them, and the light of the mystic tulip would remain a beacon of hope in the days to come.